Hey everybody, it's Retro DM Ray here, back again with you with another video in our Back to Basics series. And we are again going to dive back into basic fantasy RPG. We're going to be reading through the book sections at a time. Of course, I'll be skipping over some things, but I'll be reading through some things that are I find really wonderful and unique about basic fantasy RPG, as well as things that are different from BX. We'll kind of mention those as we travel through. I'll get this stuff out of the way right from the get-go. Hey, thanks for listening, for watching, for tuning in. We have broken 100 subscribers, so thank you all so much for tuning into the channel. Not anything that I ever expected. I appreciate all of the comments, all of the thoughts, suggestions for names of various entries into our series here. And I just really appreciate you all very much. Thank you for watching. This is indeed a labor of love for me to talk about this game that I really like, and to share these things with you as we take a tour or take a step back tour into what I think makes a great game of Dungeons & Dragons. Again, as I always say, first of all, this channel is always going to be G-rated, so you never have to worry about who you're going to share this with, who's going to watch it with you. And also to share with you the fact that these are my opinions. If you do not game this way, you do not play this way, that is totally cool. You play the way that your group plays, and you have fun doing that. I'm providing suggestions and insight from over 40 plus years of playing Dungeons & Dragons. To kind of see if this is something that entertains you, sparks your creativity, your imagination, reminds you of the old days, helps you to inform you for the new days of gaming that we're in now and the days that are yet ahead. So again, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Give us a thumbs up. To like and subscribe. That helps the algorithm of the channel to continue to get more subscribers and more people out there seeing the content. If you check the descriptions, there'll be links to anything that I talk about if I do in this video, as well as links to the PayPal tip jar if you'd like to leave us a tip during this COVID time, or if you'd like to buy me a coffee, there's going to be a link in there for that as well, that we might continue to do these videos for you. So we'll get right back into our book today. We left off last time talking about character ability scores, and I don't believe we mentioned hit dice, so I will cover that on page 4, as well as briefly talk about languages in relation to intelligence, and then we'll go right into the character races. So if you've got your PDF copy, if you've got your physical copy of the book, which you can get on basicfantasy.org, you can go to their website. You can download the PDF for absolutely free. Chris Gonnerman and the gang have made that available. It's a wonderful thing about Basic Fantasy RPG. Or you can go on Amazon or Lulu. I have Amazon Prime, so you can get the soft cover well-binded copy for $5 free shipping. So you can't beat that for a game system for sure. It's 10 times that for any of the new systems that are out there. So open your copy and just follow along with me on page 4. When a character is injured, he or she loses hit points from his or her current total. Note that this does not change the figure rolled, but rather reduces the current total. Healing will restore hit points up to but not exceeding the rolled figure. When his or her hit points total reaches 0, your character may be dead. And I like this. This may not be the end for your character. Don't tear up the character sheet. I don't know how large the graveyard would be of old character sheets that I had from back in the day, but it was pretty huge. But he suggests here not to tear up the character sheet. First level characters begin play with a single hit die of a given type, plus the Constitution bonus or penalty with a minimum of 1 point. Each time a character gains a level, the player should roll another hit die and add the character's Constitution bonus or penalty, with the result again being a minimum of 1 point. Add this amount to the character's maximum hit points figure. Note that after a 9th level, characters receive a fixed number of hit points each level, as shown in the advancement table for the class, and no longer add the Constitution bonus or penalty. So when we did hit points back in the day, our dungeon master was very nice to us, and I am still to this day. You start out with maximum hit points at first level plus your constitution modifier. But Basic Fantasy here suggests that you actually roll. And I've played a couple of times like that, and that can be some extremely scary stuff. There's another game system, if you haven't tried it, this part of the game anyway is a pretty cool idea. I think it comes from all the way back in Greyhawk Adventures, for zero level adventures from Greyhawk Adventures hardback, and has kind of moved through various iterations throughout the years. And Dungeon Crawl Classics is a game that took this idea, and you actually play ground zero level, just like normal people, a farmer, a peasant, someone like that, right out from the gate, and you have practically nothing. And that's what you do. You roll the random hit point total. In that case, you don't add anything to it, and that's just what you have to try to survive. So you put all those DCC characters, Dungeon Crawl Classics characters, on little note cards because those are easy to write out and throw away. But that is an interesting way to approach the game. If you do that, it makes it much deadlier to start with. I think it can also make for a very depth of play if you manage to survive that, because it would feel a little bit more heroic. But anyway, how we started was we just gave maximum at first level. But then after that, the danger was you rolled and you got what you got. Next section on page 4, the last section, all characters begin the game knowing their native language. In most campaign worlds, humans all, or nearly all, speak the same language, often called common. Each demi-human race has its own language, i.e. Elvish, Dwarvish, or Halfling. And members of the demi-human races begin play knowing both their own language and common, or the local human language if it isn't called common. So if you had another name for common in your particular homebrew game world or whatever, then you would use that. Characters with intelligence of 13 or higher may choose to begin the game knowing one or more languages other than those given above. The number of additional languages that may be learned is equal to the intelligence bonus, plus 1, 2, or 3. Characters may choose to learn other demi-human languages as well as humanoid languages such as Orc, Goblin, etc. The GM will decide which humanoid languages may be learned. The player may choose to leave one or more bonus language slots open to be filled during play. I really like that idea because you're kind of starting the game out going, I don't know what I've learned at this point, but I grew up on my farm in my village, and so I've really never encountered those kinds of creatures, but we encounter them enough. I'd like to actually learn that language, so I'm going to begin investing myself in studying that in some way or another so that the next time we encounter them, I can kind of understand what they're saying. I kind of like that idea. It's good role playing. So then he says some game masters may even allow player characters to learn exotic languages such as Dragon. Also, quote-unquote dead or otherwise archaic languages might be allowed for more scholarly characters. And a lot of the times, especially in my first edition game that we played, my magic users, because magic users got one spell a day when you're at first level, my magic users would make sure and take ancient languages just so that way they would have something very unique about them that you could encounter in the game to give them something else that they could do. So next we move on page 5 to the next section of Basic Fantasy here. And this section is interesting. The way that Chris and his collaborators that put this together did this. They took this from later editions of the game, which was the fact that race was not class. See, in BX, race is class. So if you're a dwarf, that is your race and class. If you're an elf, that's your race and class. If you were a halfling, that was your race and class. Gary Gygax and them at first edition, when they started working on AD&D first edition, which was in the late 70s, right up and through the time that BX came out in 81, they separated that out as well. So we played BX with an expert, basic and expert, with races class, but honestly that didn't hang around for very long because there was also games of advanced first edition going on around the same time, and so that didn't have that, and you could see the stark difference between an elf being able to be this versus an elf being an elf. There was a special Tolkien-esque type of feeling to BX, that race was class. But then when first edition came along and you play a dwarven cleric, that was unknown in BX, but it was known in first edition. So it was a difficult transitional time period right there. So we were playing some games with races class and some not, sometimes in the same week. And it didn't take very long from playing that. As after we moved from BX, we actually moved into BECME in '83 when it first came out. Began to move through BECME some, and it was back to races class again for that system. And then by the late '80s, by the beginning of the time when second edition came out, that was a bygone era. There was no race as class anymore. And really, we'd kind of homebrewed not playing that way anyway, because like I said, we'd been playing first edition kind of in juxtaposition with BX. And so that's what Chris and them have done here. They've done away with races class. And so I'll read you the entries for the races and you'll get an idea of how this is not exactly race as class. So dwarves. Dwarves are short, stocky race. Both male and female dwarves stand around 4 feet tall and typically weigh around 180 pounds. Their long hair and thick beards are dark brown, gray, or black. They take great pride in their beards, sometimes braiding or forking them. They have fair to ruddy complexion. Dwarves have stout frames and a strong muscular build. They are rugged and resilient, with the capacity to endure great hardships. Dwarves are typically practical, stubborn, and courageous. They can also be introspective, suspicious, and possessive. They have a lifespan of 3 to 4 centuries. Restrictions. Dwarves may become clerics, fighters, or thieves. They are required to have a minimum constitution of 9. Due to their generally dour dispositions, they may not have a charisma higher than 17. They may not employ large weapons more than 4 feet in length, specifically two-handed swords, polearms, and longbows. Special abilities. All dwarves have dark vision with a 60-foot range and are able to detect slanting passages, traps, shifting walls, and new construction on a roll of 1 to 2 on 1d6. A search must be performed before this roll may be made. Saving throws. Dwarves save at +4 versus death ray or poison, magic wands, paralysis, or petrify and spells, and at +3 versus dragon breath. So immediately you notice something else there if you're an old school gamer too. This is using the concept of dark vision, which I believe dark vision came around about 3.5 edition, but I'm not sure. Someone can comment and let me know if that's the case. Prior to this, at BX and the older systems, it was infravision. So you saw radiations from heat forms. If you read the Dragonlance books, you'd be able to see that in action with Tanis Half-Elven and some others in the party. The fact that you could see really cold things were blue, almost black, and hot things were really a brilliant yellowy orange color, and then there was the radiance or the gradients in between there. There was no such thing as dark vision. Remember, dark vision, especially in 5th edition, if you're playing that today, or if you're playing Pathfinder Dark Vision, for example, or Pathfinder 2nd edition too, dark vision is you see in the dark as if everything was black and white. So that's the Dwarven vision here. They still have the old detect slanting passages, traps, shifting walls, and new construction. I love that idea, and they can search for that. I love the idea that they have natural resistance to various different saving throw types. So that was still kept from the older days. And just some of their mannerisms and their build. I love how that Chris and them kept that in this system as well. Okay, moving on to elves. Elves are a slender race with both genders standing around 5 feet tall and weighing around 130 pounds. Most have dark hair with little or no body or facial hair. Their skin is pale and they have pointed ears and delicate features. Elves are lithe and graceful. They have keen eyesight and hearing. Elves are typically inquisitive, passionate, self-assured, and sometimes haughty. Their typical lifespan is a dozen centuries or more. Elves may become clerics, fighters, magic users, or thieves. They're also allowed to combine the classes of fighter and magic user and of magic user and thief. See combination classes below. They are required to have a minimum intelligence of 9. Due to their generally delicate nature, they may not have a constitution higher than 17. Elves never roll larger than 6-sided dice for hit points. All elves have dark vision with a 60-foot range. They're able to find secret doors more often than normal, 1 to 2 on 1d6 rather than the usual 1. An elf is so observant that One has a 1 in a d6 chance to find a secret door with a cursory look. Elves are immune to the paralyzing attack of ghouls. Also, they are less likely to be surprised in combat, reducing the chance of surprise by 1 in 1d6. Saving throws. Elves save at a +1 versus paralysis or petrify, and a +2 versus magic wands and spells. So again, you see dark vision here, repeated here, and they still have the old holdover of being able to find the secret doors. I love that idea. They're immune to the attacks of ghouls. Depending on the older edition, you might have also been immune to sleep, charm, and hold spells. That started in first edition, became a big thing in second edition. And then, of course, here it specifically says elves never roll larger than d6 or 6-sided dice for hit points. So you'll see here in a little bit when we look at classes, maybe the next time, how the hit dice are broken down as to what classes get what. Because again, this is a basic fantasy RPG. This is a basic looking back system with some 3.5 and newer system stuff kind of meshed into it here, okay? But the lethality is still very much there because your hit dice are still very low on the scale of dice type. I like that about a game. I think when you begin to make characters like the Avengers or even X-Men, even DC hero type characters, where the rest of the world is not that, and the monsters are not that, then taking that lethality away just kind of ruins the game and it ruins the role playing. If I don't have a really strong or high chance to die, then for me and the people that I've played with in the past and that my family that I play with now, it's just not a fun game. It would be like playing Yahtzee and then all the dice just come up in your suits just whenever you roll them. There's no opportunity to make nothing out of those combinations and lose that. Or there's no opportunity to miss the questions on Trivial Pursuit, and your turn is just ruined, even if you landed on the place where you could receive the pie slice for your particular holder, right? So that I think that has to be there for a good in-depth role-playing, mystery, intrigue, fear, those kinds of things. That's an integral part for me, I believe. Okay, so next we turn to page 6, and we're going to talk about halflings. Halflings are small, slightly stocky folk who stand around 3 feet tall and weigh about 60 pounds. They have curly brown hair on their heads and feet, but rarely have facial hair. They are usually fair-skinned, often with ruddy cheeks. Halflings are remarkably rugged for their small size. They are dexterous and nimble, capable of moving quietly and remaining very still. They usually go barefoot. Halflings are typically outgoing, unassuming, and good-natured. They live about 100 years. Halflings may become clerics, fighters, or thieves. They're required to have a minimum dexterity of 9. Due to their small stature, they may not have a strength higher than 17. Halflings never roll larger than 6-sided dice for hit points, regardless of class. Halflings may not use large weapons and must wield medium weapons with both hands. Halflings are unusually accurate with all sorts of ranged weapons, gaining a +1 attack bonus when employing them. When attacked in melee by creatures larger than man size, halflings gain a +1 bonus to their armor class. +2 bonus to their armor class. Halflings are quick-witted, thus adding +1 to the initiative die rolls. Outdoors in their preferred forest terrain, they are able to hide very effectively. So long as they remain still, there is only a 10% chance they will be detected. Even indoors in dungeons or in non-preferred terrain, they are able to hide such that there is only a 30% chance of detection. Note that a halfling thief will roll only once, using either the thief ability or the halfling ability, whichever is better. Halflings save at +4 versus death ray or poison, magic wands, paralysis or petrify, and spells, and +3 versus dragon breath. And that's the same thing as the dwarf. So you note there, again, it says nothing about unusual vision. So halflings see just like humans do. No changes there. And you also see that, again, they never roll larger than a 6-sided dice for hit points, regardless of class. And like dwarves, they cannot use large weapons, and they must use medium weapons in 2 hands. But then they get that cool +1 when attacking with all sorts of ranged weapons. I really love that. That reflects, you see Merry and Pippin from the back of Treebeard chucking rocks at the goblins and the orcs that are there. I just think that's really cool in the movie that this is represented right here in this particular system, right? And then halflings get a +2 to their armor class. Again, as you saw with Merry and Pippin ducking and dodging when they got free from their bonds to head into Fangorn Forest in that movie as well. And then outdoors, being able to hide in their terrain, and then even in dungeons to be able to hide there as well. I just think that's really cool as well. Again, lending to the fact that they're very small, stealthy, quiet. I just think that's a really cool role-playing opportunities there. The last one on page 6 is humans. Humans come in a broad variety of shapes and sizes. Yes, unfortunately we do. And the game master must decide what sorts of humans live in the game world. An average human male in good health stands around 6 feet tall and weighs about 175. Most humans live around 75 years. Humans may be any single class. They have no minimum or maximum ability score requirements. Humans learn unusually quickly, gaining a 10% bonus to all experience points earned. Humans are the standard, quote-unquote, and thus have no saving throw bonuses. Now, this is a throwback to really OD&D, but certainly first edition, certainly in BX. Humans were considered the norm of what everyone would probably be playing. The demi-human races were rare. Again, I think that was wonderful and is really lost today in the new systems, and it's really completely off the rails with Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Race, or in Pathfinder 2nd Edition it's called ancestry, whatever. But I just think that it being incredibly humanocentric, and those other races being rare, man, when you play one, it feels so unique and so rare that that's a little bit of something special for you to be able to play. I know, for example, in BX, going up in level as a demi-human character, and even in BECME, you had to earn more experience points to be able to be those things. And so that made it be that since you start out with so many special abilities, well, yes, that's why it took you so long. And humans didn't have that problem. So I think there's some aspect of that is just really missing, and really I would like to see brought back as well. And then on the bottom of page 6, our last thing for today is combination classes. Because remember, we talked about before, throughout all these demi-human entries, you have dwarves that can be clerics, fighters, and thieves. You can have elves that can be clerics, fighters, magic users, thieves, and halflings that can be clerics, fighters, or thieves. But it specifically says here in Basic Fantasy that elves are the only ones who can be these combination classes. So it says to become a member of a combination class on page 6, a character must meet the requirements of both classes. Combination class characters use the best attack bonus and the best saving throw values of their original 2 classes, but must gain experience equal to the combined requirements of both classes to advance in levels. Elves are the only characters eligible to become a member of one of these combination classes. Fighter magic user. These characters may both fight and cast magic spells. Further, they are allowed to cast magic spells while wearing armor. These characters roll 6-sided dice for hit points. Magic user thief. Members of this combination class may cast spells while wearing leather armor and may use any weapon. These characters roll 4-sided dice for hit points. So your advantage was not only do you get to be a demi-human, but if you play a demi-human elf who lives for an incredibly long period of time, it would make perfect sense that you could be multiple classes because you could take forever to be one. And so consequently you get bonuses, but your penalty is it takes you much longer to go up in level. And that's because you have the access to this that these other classes do not. And you have access to all of those special abilities that elves have that some of the other races just simply do not. And again, humans, being humanocentric, humans don't have a penalty on on experience points. Actually, the opposite. They don't have a penalty. They're not restricted on their one class they can have, and they get a 10% bonus. That really comes into play well when you realize that this system is based on the old systems of you got some experience points for monsters. You certainly would have gotten some experience points for role play or problem solving or whatever that your DM or GM might have given you. And then you also got experience points for treasure value. So that 10% really mattered a lot. So I just think it's really cool to see this old flavor, this old flair in the basic fantasy RPG system, and it's another one of the things that I really love about it. Make some comments below if you want to talk more about these things. You want to provide some information that I didn't provide from some of the older systems to give some insight into all of us about that. Next time we're going to start into talking about the individual character classes. Once I finish with Basic Fantasy RPG book, I might go into some of the various different options that you can print off for the website. If you go take a look at basicfantasy.org, you'll see those different options that you can install on top of just the basic system here. It alters magic users. It alters some of the other classes. There's some weapon expertise type things that can be printed out and added to it, some other extra classes, a few extra racial things, some extra spell casting addendums, druids, for example, and those kinds of things. And we might talk about those as those come around later once we're done. But for now, we'll stop here, and we'll be looking forward to the next time when I talk about character classes. So again, thanks for tuning in. Please give us a thumbs up, click the subscribe, click that bell icon so you'll know from notification when we put up new videos. Thanks, guys, again, all of you for subscribing. We're over 100 now, I think 106 subscribers. That's super cool. Share the channel with your friends, your family. You can let your kids watch and hear about these old school games, the old school days, the old school way to play. And train up these kids, I think, in the way that they should go as far as these old school games are concerned. The new stuff has fantastic art, don't get me wrong, but its play style is just so radically different from this that I wonder if it lends itself to the same level of play and the same level of role-playing interaction and depth that this old system does. So I would encourage you to check it out, see what you think. Again, thanks again for tuning in. Appreciate y'all. Like I always say, hey, enjoy your gaming and may all your rolls be nat 20s. Take care.